A warm welcome to Diski Talk with Liolo. If you're tuning in for the very first time, I do ask that you please subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you've been a part of this journey, I hope you thoroughly enjoy this episode. So, on today's episode, I discuss all things Nedbank Cup as it gets underway this weekend. However, on today's episode then, I am going to be discussing a pre-match analysis of Orlando Pirates versus Amazulu, as that is the tie of the round. When we have a look at it then, coming up into this encounter, the red team will represent Orlando Pirates and the blue team will represent Amazulu. So the last time out then, these two teams did play against each other in the DSTV Premiership, and that was the last match of 2021, and Orlando Pirates won that game 2-1. So they do have the upper hand, and that was when Pepra scored a brace as well. However, a couple of things have changed since then, especially from an Amazulu perspective with regards to players they've brought in during the transfer window. However, let's get into the tactical pre-match analysis. So when we have a look at Orlando Pirates then, they do line up in a 3-4-2-1 in possession of the ball. Out of possession, they do go to a 4-4-2/4-5-1. So it is quite a hybrid system that would transition at different phases of play. So in goals then, I do think that Mponchane will start as the back three, as a left-sided centre-back. I think they'll start with Mayela as the centre-back, then Happy Jele, and then as a right-sided centre-back, Olisa Nda. So we do know that Happy Jele is back to fitness, as he did play in the DSTV Compact Cup. So I would like to think that he makes his way back into this defence. And when you have a look at it then, some might argue that this would most likely be Orlando Pirates' best defence, because then you've got Olisa Nda and you've got Happy Jele, who are very, very solid, and also factor in how well Olisa Nda has been doing within the DSTV Premiership, and the understanding that Jele and Olisa Nda have. And when you then have a look at this back three, then it would then facilitate for Orlando Pirates to be able to build up from the back, because in Innocent Mayela, you've got a player who's comfortable on the ball, can play out from the back, who is a left back by trade, but within the system would play as the left-sided centre-back. You've got Happy Jele and you've got Olisa Nda as well. Moving then within the heart of midfield, I do think that they will start with Musele and Ben Mutswari. So when you have a look then at this midfield too, I do think that Mutswari would be the one then to sit a lot deeper, and then Musele would be the one looking then to venture forward. So we do know that Musele then can venture forward at times, can look to make those progressive runs and break the line as well, as this is a player who has scored a couple of goals for Orlando Pirates this season. So at times then he's well adept at making those deep runs from midfield. And then having a look then at the left wing back, you will most likely have Hotto playing as the left wing back within the system. So when you have a look at Hotto, he has been quite an instrumental player for Orlando Pirates this season with regards to the goals he scored and the assists as well. However, I do think that if he was a lot more clinical and he ticked more boxes from a qualitative perspective, he'd have better numbers this season, because he's gotten so many chances. So that could be something that he could be looking to improve and work on going into the second round. However, within this match then, he will play as the left wing back. He will offer Orlando Pirates that width. However, when play does allow and spaces do open up within the field, you will see him at times drift infield and then look to be the one then to finish off certain moves, and at times looking then to create play for this Orlando Pirates side from the left wing back position and giving them the width then within vertical zone 1. And then when we have a look then at the right wing back, you will most likely have Ubandile Shandu. So Shandu then is another player then who has scored a couple of goals for this Orlando Pirates side. He has been playing as the right wing back, and whenever then Orlando Pirates don't have the ball, you will see him then looking to tuck in and make it a back four. However, in possession of the ball, he will then offer the width for this Orlando Pirates side. At times, you will see him pushing up into the box and penetrating into the final third, as he has scored a couple of goals for Orlando Pirates. And then when you have a look at it then as the two number 10s, so I do think that Lorch starts, and you will most likely have Tsukamanja, or you could have Makubela. And then up front, I think you could have Pepra, as we do know that Pepra was starting to find then his feet, as he scored a back-to-back brace against Marumo Gallants and against this very Amazulu side. So coming up into this encounter then, I think that Pepra would be very confident, and he would be looking then to pick it up where he left it off last year, towards the end of the year, the last fixture that was played within the DSTV Premiership. However, what I do want to say though is that when you have a look at Gabadinho Mahango, that is a player who did very, very well at AFCON. And I think that is a player then who could get reinstated back into this Orlando Pirates 11. And how then they could look to use then Gabadinho Mahango is then, instead of them playing a 3-4-2-1, play then a 3-4-1-2. So have Pepra then there, and then have Mahango. And then you'd have two strikers up front, and then you could have Lorch then operating as a 10. I think from that perspective, it would be a lot better, because then I think Mahango is a player then who's found that confidence and is finding that fitness again, and is a player that could be so lethal for this Orlando Pirates side, especially considering that they have struggled in the final third. As much as, yes, Pepra has been scoring goals, but there's so many other chances that they just don't put away. And from a qualitative perspective, Mahango ticks various boxes. So when you do have Gabadinho Mahango then there, I think then he would address that issue. And then when you have Lorch playing as a 10 and given the freedom then to roam around and to be able then to drop deep into the half space to pick up the ball and look then to make things happen for this Orlando Pirates side, he could be so deadly. And when you have a look at him then, he is a player then that can always penetrate into the final third and score goals as well. And what then I like about him is that it then becomes very difficult to pick up, because then he would just drift into various pockets of spaces. Sometimes you'd see him in the left half space. Sometimes he'd give you that presence in zone 14. Sometimes in the right side of half space. He can drop very deep, and he can also look then to play those penetrative 30-40 yard passes where then he is able to find his man. And what I then like about this system then is that Lorch then would then just have the onus of being the creative playmaker and being then the player who's then looking then to advance Orlando Pirates into the final third and also looking to score goals. The nice thing then with this system is that then they've got the width in the two wing backs, in Hoto on the left hand side in vertical zone 1, on the right hand side in vertical zone 5 you've got Shandu, and then you've got a solid midfield base of Musele and Mutsware, which then allows Lorch the freedom then to just look to create for this Orlando Pirates side. And then he's got two players up front as well. And I think then this could be a system that could predicate for a lot more goals and a lot more consistency for this Orlando Pirates side. And when I look at it then, I think that Lorch will be a key player coming up into this encounter, especially considering then that this is a chance then for Orlando Pirates to win a trophy this season. And yeah, I think they would be going into this Nedbank encounter with a very strong 11 and then looking then to win this encounter. And then off the bench, you could always have Tsukamanja. If he doesn't start, he could come off the bench. You could have Kabelo Dlamini off the bench. You could have Mabasa off the bench. Another player who's been doing very well within the DSTV Diski Challenge is Radiopane. He can also come off the bench and make an impact. And yeah, this Orlando Pirates side, they do have options off the bench that can always come then and influence the game and change the game. Makaring as well could come into midfield. You got Nkanyiso Zungu as well. So they've got a whole host of players who can come off the bench and impact the game. However, the key player then for this Orlando Pirates side will be Thembinkosi Lorch. And then when we then move along and have a look at Amazulu. So Amazulu then have been, very busy during the transfer window. If it's not them making headlines, then it's them bringing in players. So the two players that they have added is Abubakar Mubara and then Mojak as well, who is a striker. However, I personally don't know much about him, so we're yet to see what he can really offer this Amazulu side. And then another key interesting point then when it comes to Amazulu is Sithebe. So it has been reported that the owner has come out, Mr. Zungu has come out and said that Sithebe will play no part in the rest of the season for Amazulu. However, Coach Benny McCarthy has come out and said that he still is a key player, he still is within the plans, and he's still reporting to training. So it does then make it very interesting with regards to then how do Amazulu line up, because we do know that Sithebe is a senior player and a key player for this Amazulu side. However, let's have a look at Amazulu then. So in goals then, they will start with Uveli Mota. And then this is where it becomes interesting then, because they have brought in Abubakar Mubara. So this is a player then who can play as a right back, he can play as a centre back, and he can also play as a defensive midfielder. However, I think his best position is as a defender, playing as a centre-back. And when you do have a look at Amazulu, I do think that they've struggled in the right-back position, because Sikakane is a player then who, from a qualitative perspective, doesn't tick the necessary boxes, in my opinion, to play as a right-back for this Amazulu side. And whenever Gumede has played, he can do a job there, but I just think that they've struggled because they don't have a premium right-back there. So it does then make it interesting, because then we could see Abubakar Mubara being used as a right back, and then Ukumede starting alongside Tapelo Tloki, and then at left back you could then have Malepe. However, I think that Mubara would partner Utapelo Tloki, because I just think that from a qualitative perspective, this would be Amazulu's best centre-back partnership. However, if they do look to use Mubara as a right back, you could then always start with Ukumalo and Tapelo Tloge, as I do think that in previous times that has been Amazulu's most solid centre-back partnership. If Ukumalo is not available, you could have Mkwazela there. So I then think that will be the back four for Amazulu. I do foresee them then starting with Ukumete at right back, Abubakar Mubara as the right-sided centre-back, and then as the left-sided centre-back, you could have Tapelo Tlogi, and then as the left-back, you could have Malepe. However, just to note at home, guys, as players are coming back from the break, so maybe certain players might not be fully fit. Maybe some players could pick up knocks, and maybe then the coaches might then change their plan and their idea. So yeah, so this could change, but that's what I foresee. So in goals, Velimotwa. At right back, Ukumede. Two centre-backs, Abubakar Mubara, Tapelo Tlogi. And then at left back, Malepe. And what then I like about this defense is that, especially when you have a look at the two centre-backs, Tapelo Tlogi is very, very solid at the heart of defense. Abubakar Mubara is a player then would complement him very well, because then he would be able then to read play, and whenever then Tapelo Tlogi would look to engage play, Mubara can always cover for him. He is then a player then that would be able to keep up with quick players, and a player then who's also very comfortable on the ball, can open up and start play for this Amazulu side, and he reads the game very well. And then when we move along into the heart of midfield, where it gets interesting, if we're to go according to the reports of Mr. Zungu, then I foresee then Buchanan and Mahaula starting within the heart of midfield as a solid pair. And when you have a look at this solid pair, then I think they'll be very key coming up into this encounter, as I do think that they will be key then in combating this Orlando Pirates side, especially when Orlando Pirates look then to hold on to the ball, look to progress the ball within the final third, and look then to pass the ball through the lines and in those tight pockets of spaces. How then Buchanan and Mahaula institute defensive action within the heart of midfield will be very, very key, especially then whenever Orlando Pirates look to overload the half spaces. How then do they react to that, and how do they deal with that situation? And then what I also like about them is that on the other side of the coin, then you've got two players who are very comfortable on the ball, who can progress the ball for this Amazulu side. And when you have a look then at Keegan Buchanan, he's got a phenomenal range of passing, as this is a player then who can play those 40-yard diagonal balls, and a player then who keeps the game very simple. He keeps it flowing, and he does play very progressive passes at times, defense splitting passes, and can find those creative players in between the lines and in those tight pockets of spaces. And then on the right-hand side, I do foresee Qalinge starting, and what we do know about Qalinge is a very quick player. He's very tricky and can deliver those balls. And because then Orlando Pirates do play with the back three, this is then an opportunity for Qalinge to exploit the space, which is then left in behind the wing back. And whenever then you've got a system where a team is playing with the back three, the centre backs then on either side don't like being dragged out, because then it becomes uncomfortable territory. However, in this case, they do have Mayela, who is naturally a left back. So it does make it an interesting duel. And I do think that then this hole is a space that Qalinge could look to exploit, especially considering that in the past, Orlando Pirates have struggled then to combat wingers whenever then they did play with the back three, and then they had the two wingers. These holes would always be exploited. So very interesting to see then how they deal with that. But Qalinge would then start off the right and would look to then cause problems for this Orlando Pirates side, as he does come up against his old side and will offer then the width for this Amazulu side in vertical zone 5 in the right wide channel. And then when you have a look at the left side, you've got Augustine Mulenga. So this is a player then who's been very key for Amazulu in recent times, and a player then who can score goals and give you the assist as well. And I think coming up into this encounter, he's another player then who faces an old side. He could be very key then when it comes to looking to exploiting then this defense of Orlando Pirates, because when you have a look at this defense then, they are not the quickest, and Mulenga then is quite a tricky player then, and a player then who is well adept at looking to cut in, can occupy zone 14, can penetrate into the box as well, and score those goals for Amazulu. And then, as the attacking midfielder, I do think that they will start with Memela. Memela has been very key for this Amazulu side when it comes to creating those opportunities, operating within those half spaces, and operating in between the lines, as he will look at times to just pop up, maybe into that half space, take the ball on the back foot and look to progress and advance into the final third. And then up front, I do think that they will start with Ubongintuli. So when it comes to this Amazulu side, then they've got a plethora of options. You know, there's so many players that they could look to use. You know, you've got Maduna, you've got Exteen, you've got Majoro, you've got De Jong. So there's so many players that they could look to use. However, I do foresee that this is their strongest 11. And coming up into this encounter against Pirates, I do think that this is the 11 that they could use. And when you do have the look at the Zungu brothers, these are very, very ambitious brothers. So I think this is a competition then that they would like to compete in and try go all the way and look to win. So coming up into this encounter then, I do foresee Memela being the key player for this Amazulu side, as he will be key then in ensuring that Amazulu are able to progress the ball into the final third. He will be key then at looking to create chances for this Amazulu side, and at times himself being able to penetrate and look to finish off those chances, because he is a player then with an eye for goal and is very creative as well. So when we have a look at it then, from a key player's perspective, it is Thembinkosi Lorch versus Luvuyo Memela. So at home, do let me know who then advances then to the round of 16 in this encounter. I do think that it will be Orlando Pirates. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in to yet another special episode of Diski Talk with Luyolo. Signing out.